Here's another picture of Salagi family, and if you can blow this image up, you'll see that he has on a fur fez tarbouche turban. This was also called a turban, tarbouche fez halo, and he even has, you can see here, representing the tassel. Another image for the brother that this is a blatant liar. I don't know why he feels so comfortable lying about things about the Moors. We didn't wear fezzes over here. We wore feathers, and he didn't have any feathers in his hair. These people they're funny, man. It's kind of hilarious. But there's another one for you. Just giving you proof, brother. And I've told him before, anytime he decides to come straight and come correct, we can all build. We can all make this thing real powerful, man. We can come together and make it powerful. But kind of showing you who some of the traitors people are. They just have this stuff in their blood, where they just can't seem to back off of Moors. But the brother said at the in the video, the 8-10 minute mark right inside there, he said that sometime after the 18-minute mark, long before Columbus, we had ships. We sailed back and forth from America to the motherland. To the motherland. I'm wondering if that's Big Mama. Brother loves Big Mama. Big Mama. Is that Big Mama the motherland? Well, you're never going to hear anybody credible that is oracle or seer, sayer, mention anything about Columbus, because Columbus the man didn't exist. The dates are false. The story has contradictions, and various names of places he visited during those times were not called by those names, even though we know the time has been changed too. But Columbus never set foot in America, and that is a code. Columbus never set foot in America. It's a code, because Columbus was known as the Dove. It's a secret society. They didn't have a foot. They had many feet. But they used two other names for Christopher Colon, and another one was Admiral Colani. But the man they're telling you that was Columbus, he was based off of the Moor that navigated a fleet of vessels throughout South America and Brazil and even the Caribbean. But historians have created a narrative which is a misdirection about Christopher Columbus, and people repeat that revisionist history, that manufactured, concocted story about Christopher Columbus and invasions and colonizers and the whole nine. It's romanticism. We're going to get into that later too. But the Mora family, M-O-R-A, the Mora family was from South America via Brazil. So this is the man that they say Christopher Columbus is based upon, which is, this is a painting titled The Voyage of Columbus by Arthur Cadwagan, 1881-1965, who was an English painter and illustrator. And the painting is an illustration from the book This Country of Ours, The Story of the United States by Henrietta Elizabeth Marshall and George H. Doran Company, New York, 1917. So 1917, 1876, 1941, 1881, 1965. Where's the date of 1492? Why do we have people writing books about people like hundreds and hundreds of years after? Where's the writings of like 1492 and before that, like 1490? Where's those writings at about him, which he's representing a society? Columbus was known as the Dove. It was a secret society of men who were infiltrating certain places and gathering information in South America and other places. So let's take a look at the Moor family here. If I can find this right here, we go. The coat of arms for the Moor family, and it's made up of a shield framed by a red. Now, whenever you see this color on shields, it's already telling you that the red and the maroon, those colors were the representation of the Moorish Empire worldwide. Your indigenous autochthonous tribes that were down with the empire, you're going to see them wearing red turbans, red head wraps, red sashes, red bands or maroon bands. They're going to be adorned in some type of red if they stood with the Moorish Empire, going back to Tartaria. So it's adorned by a red Bordeaux. The shield is quarterly, and we give the names here: Rafael Mora, Juan Mora, and it says Gauls, the bust of Christopher Columbus. So one of these is supposed to be the bust of Cristobal Colon, who didn't exist. And it says the bust of Antonio Hernandez, and it goes on to describe more of the shield. But it says right here, the shield surmounted by a crown and a small orb inscribed with Mora in letters sable. And it says the shield is supported by 2 branches of coffee. Here it is right here. 2 branches of coffee. And it says fructed proper beneath the shield. A scroll azure inscribed with 1883 in numerals sable. So this is you take a look at the shield. This is coffee. Now I want to hit you with something about coffee. This is the things you got to look into. Why did it have the showed you that one? Why did it have the coffee on the crest? So when you take a look at the metric tons per year of coffee, where they all come from, there's a certain strain of coffee that comes from Spain, right? But it doesn't take very well to the soil in the Americas. Keep that in mind. So there's a certain strand of coffee that grows over there, but the most coffee that is produced in the world, metric tons, you see the circles, right? You see where these circles are. These are African nations over there that produce coffee. You got Madagascar. We're going to talk about Madagascar later too. And then you have over here, you have these continents, and you got India and other territories. But look at how big this goddamn circle is. Where is this at? Where is this at? This is Brazil. And this is, look how many circles are looped around in here, in Mexico, and in parts of the Caribbean, and in the Caribbean. Look at all these goddamn circles looped over each other. You see that? But look how big this one is. Remember why I told you where Christopher Columbus was, well, the person he's based off of was from. The Mora family is from Brazil. They're from the Americas. They're not from Spain overseas. At the time people are talking about Spain, there was no Spain over there. It had various names. It's called La Peninsula, the peninsula. We can talk about the Iberia, which was in several locations as well. But it wasn't called Spain at the time. So just pay attention to the metric tons per year. So when we talk about Christopher Columbus, it's just like Amerigo Vespucci, and his real name was Florentine de la Tante. Florentine de la Tante was Amerigo Vespucci. Columbus' story was based off another. It was based off another person. But the Society of the Dove was the hidden hand behind breaking up certain nations. It was done covertly. It wasn't done by invasion and colonizing the way they told you. It was done covertly by acquiescence. So the brother goes on to mention Africa, the land, the motherland, Big Mama. But I want to talk about him saying traveling back and forth in ships. We're going to handle that real quick too. So the original meaning of a ship is a zeppelin. These are zeppelins. This is the way that Moorish Tartarians traveled. Airships. Airships. A ship is something that flies in the air. A boat is something that travels on the water. This was one of the most safest ways of traveling. You see these, do they look nailed down? This is on the Zeppelin here. Very effective way of air traveling, not by boats, but by air. Pull up some other Zeppelins if I have some for you here. So when people talk about traveling by boat, when you go back to the original way of traveling was by air and not by water. And these things are all ancient, man. They go way back. You don't see any tanks because it was all free energy. You see this? This is free energy. No tanks, no helium. The Hindenburg was sabotaged. And they started sabotaging a lot of airships to get everybody to start buying these things in the background, automobiles that burned oil and took gas. And you couldn't see what you were on. On these Zeppelins, you could look down and see exactly what the Earth looked like. You could tell which continent was where. This is where they mapped territories. And this is why some of the maps have been changed. Even since the 1930s and 40s, they've changed the maps. Because now you don't know what you're on. Because you're in a car, or you're on a bus, or a train. You're not in these anymore. That's the way the Moorish Tartarians traveled. But speaking of the going back and forth with ships to Africa, he says they sailed back and forth to Africa. They sailed over there to intermarry with the royal families to prevent defects, birth defects. So your tribe, Mr. You know your name, they avoided intermarrying with Moors. I mean, after all, they say that Moors are from Africa, right? Even though we know it wasn't called Africa, but this is what they tell us, though. It's what history says. And you, as well as the other brother in South America, you repeat mainstream history a lot. But somehow you were able to avoid intermarrying with Moors, right? You didn't do that? But I'd like to know what was wrong with the bloodlines of your tribe, since they had to go over there to intermarry to prevent birth defects. Birth defects started occurring after the vaccination of smallpox, circa like 1790. Misnomer, we know the time is off. Any ancient birth defects were always attributed to genetic experiments, witchcraft, including some sort of curse being placed on the family. So please, if you could, provide us with one name of one tribe, including the territory in the motherland, Big Mama, your tribe or others were mixing with. Give us the royal family names also. Who were you mixing with? So if anyone was mixing with royals in Africa, why is it extremely difficult for various African nations, tribes to grow long beards? But it's very easy for so-called blacks, autochthonous Americans, to grow long beards. What about the textures of hair? Why is it different? Growth patterns are different. Some features are similar, but they're not all the exact same. Bone structure is similar, but it's not the exact. And of course you will find certain similarities, but that's almost anywhere in the world. But just, can you answer a few of those questions? Wait a minute, why is the O bloodline predominantly found heavy in South America and the Caribbean, specifically Ecuador and Peru? Now Zimbabwe is at a 50 to 60%, but few other African nations are listed. And while we're on South America, you and the brother down south, pull up the Wari peoples, W-A-R, peoples of Peru, Heru. Peru was the original Jerusalem. Jerusalem, aka the original Jerusalem. New Jersey territory is the second Jerusalem. You all were wondering, on the podcast there, what was so special about New Jersey? Well, Drew Ali established his second organization in Jersey after the first was in Virginia territory of North Carolina. Your other autochthonous person didn't know that North Carolina was considered to be Virginia territory. The Jerusalem over in Africa, in the Middle East, is the third in the Freemasonic misdirection, just like the Morocco over there is the third in the Freemasonic misdirection. But I'm positive you are aware of Freemason misdirections because you've referred people to read several Freemasonic books. So I know you're aware of the Freemasonic misdirection. So the Wari peoples, let's take a look at the Wari peoples real quick. Can I pull something? Let me pull something up for while we're on the Waris people of South America. It wouldn't be right unless I showed you. This is why we're doing this here. So here it is right here. The Wari, Spanish, Uarai, were a middle horizon civilization that flourished in south central Andes and coastal area of modern-day Peru from about 500 to 1000 AD. Wari, as the former capital, was called as it is located, and it gives the location northeast of the modern city of Ayacucho, Peru. Now, let's take a look at this. No, we went too quick. Let's go here. This is called it's also referring to the psycholinguistics of language, if I'm saying that correctly. But a lot of the history of the autochthonous peoples are in languages. This is why they tried to change a lot of languages, but they can't get away from it. They're there. Even the symbols are there in the letters of languages. But let's do this. The H sound and M sound, synonymous in Spanish, right? Spanish comes from Latin, and Latin comes from what was called Moorish Latin. And that's the language they spoke during the Tartarian age, is Moorish Latin. In Spanish, the H sound is essentially silent, meaning there is no direct synonym for it, as it doesn't produce a sound. For the M sound, and the M is two pyramids joined together, by the way. M, we got M13, right? We can get into that too. But for the M sound, y'all ready for this? More haters? For the M sound, the letter M itself is the direct equivalent. So it's equivalent to the H. What was that word again? Wasn't Harvey we looked up? Yeah, it was equivalent to the H. The M is a direct equivalent, producing the same M sound as in English. Well, oh my gosh. Now, here's another one. Very simple. Yes, Mari, M-A-R-I, is related to the word Moor. Yes, Mari is related to the word Moor. We get into the Proto-Germanic word, which is Mari, and we can get into the Germanic tribes and nations, and even that will blow your mind. So these are the Mari people of South America, as I mentioned to you before. If you want to look up the Mari people, you can look that up in South America, and it is the word Moors for you people that want to continue to say that the Moors are foreigners. You're the same people that won't pick up an exotic map of the Americas to see where France was. You're talking about people coming from France at a time to where France didn't exist in Europe. Europe wasn't even called Europe then. And the territory was called Gaul. It wasn't called France. France was over here. We're going to get into that later too. As I said, you guys asked for it. You've been asking for it. So we're just giving it to you. So take your ass whooping. That's the big homie over in Peru. Brother down there got a chance to mingle with the Peruvians. And the Peruvian priest and the other people he spoke with in Peru, they had no problem acknowledging Moors and Peruvians being the same peoples. So it's interesting that we have the brother down there south of the border there, South America someplace, that continues talking about Peruvians and South Americans, and they don't know what Moors are, and Moors are foreigners. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like the agenda is just becoming a little bit too much to bear with trying to make the Moors into foreigners. And we already handled the Wari people, W-A-R-I, and which is the word Maori, which is the word Moor. We handled that earlier. But the rebranding of peoples all over the Americas by the real infiltrators who initiated a foreign corporation. We have to understand that it was not anyone came over here invading, jumping off ships and whooping everybody's ass. It was done very, very sly by bad contracts, bad agreements, and deception. Let's remember that you have to take this back to what's called the East Indian Company, which became the Virginia Company, which were corporations. See, this was not done by soldiers in wars, as they have written about. In the foreign corporations, the elites were removing more from identities. So the foreign corporations are rebranding and relabeling people. Then, as the gentleman said, the foreign dirty Moors were removing the term Moor from peoples in Americas. That doesn't make any sense. The absolute truth is, globalist foreign elites, they didn't like the term Moor. It reminds them of the old world, Tartaria, which was heaven on earth. And it reminded them of what they are not and what they are. You see, the invaders are associated with other types of political tools for division. But we still must clarify the myth of physical invasions in the past. No one got off boats kicking everyone's ass. And this lie must stop immediately. So it's now it's time to think. And with that concept that the brother mentioned in the video, as I referred to earlier, the dirty Moors came over here fresh off the boat, whooping everybody's ass. That really, they really must have been gods or something if they did that, if you believe that. They just ran through all the weak-ass people over here, beating ass everywhere they went, taking lands. I mean, all over the Americas. And if you just stop to think, do you know how much land that is? You see, that's a beatdown. And the story makes no sense. It makes no sense. It was an inside job. And we're going to get into what's called Indian traders and traitors. And we can't seem to find any references of Moorish traders or traitors. And I want to show you an image of another people that were in South America also, known as the Moshi civilization. Mosi. The Mosi civilization. It says the Mosi civilization flourished along the fertile valley of the coast of ancient Peru. Peru, Salam, Jerusalem, the real Jerusalem. From 100 to 800 BC, particularly in the Chichimaya and Truo valleys, the Moshi territory can be broadly divided into two separate areas of two different languages and slightly different art and architectural trends. The Moshi was famous owing to their magnificent ceramic art, exquisite craftsmanship, and complex architecture. With the conquest of the surrounding territory, the Moshi were able to accumulate a large amount of wealth and power to establish them as an important early Adian culture. The Moshi. I guess that word Mo doesn't mean anything in there. And the fact that we're seeing the way they're adorned, specifically the image on your left here, the fez here, something that represents the fez. I guess that doesn't mean anything, because this is an ancient head wrap. It's an ancient headdress. It is original to the Americas, just like I handled the kufi and many others. That doesn't mean anything. A picture is worth 1,000 words, but yet we still have people that will say the Moors are all foreigners. The other statement that was made in the video I'm responding to, it says that the Pope sent the dirty Moors from Europe, and they didn't have a home nowhere on the planet. But the brother said that the Pope sent them from Europe, so I thought they would have been from Europe. So let's deal with a few things here on the Vatican and the popes and the whole nine. Here you see you have 3 different territories, 3 different areas, original places that mimicked with Vaticano, Vaticus. This mimicked the one here in South America and the one here in Corral, Peru. But these people that are here today are not ancient people. The structures are, but the people are not ancient. So the question would be, if the Pope sent them, the real question would be, where were they sent from? Were they sent from South America? Were they sent from one of these places, Corral, Peru? Were they sent from here? But he's going to lean towards this one, Vaticano, being the Vatican over in Europe. But that one is not even 150 years old. These are ancient. And you can look up the establishment of the Vatican when you get a chance. So I'm wondering which Vatican he's talking about, or which Pope is he talking about. And at the time he made this statement about the Pope sending over dirty Moors from Europe, they didn't have a home nowhere on the planet. Of course, he just said they came from Europe. But my meeting clock, I was in a meeting at the time when I was listening to the video, it showed 33 minutes as soon as he said that. And that's a significant number in Masonry, and I think that was a confirmation on the brother. But let's handle nowhere on the planet. I'm going to show you this one. It may be a little difficult to see here. But nowhere on the planet. This gentleman calls himself a chief. And he's not aware of some of the older bird's eye view of what we're on here, the way it's mapped out. We are in here. We are right in here. This is where we are, outside of our known continents, and there's a few other continents in here. There's other continents. You'd have to zoom in, unknown continents. I handled this before in another video. And then outside of this perimeter, this is Antarctica. It's a perimeter that circles us. Once you get through here, there's other land masses out here. And then once you get through here, there's other ones out here. And once you get through here, there's other ones out here. Probably goes on and on and on. We're on an eternal plane. And every chief in the 1800s had something in common. And I'm going to find you another image of the Flatheads here, which was a name that was initially given as a mockery. But every chief knew what we were on, and they were mocked for it. When the globe was presented and wasn't presented until later on in history, a lot of people laughed at the concept of a globe. But these are the Flatheads. The man on the right, your right, is Pereira Maggie Cap. He was from the Calypso, Kalispel, a.k.a. Pinned or Delhi tribe from Flathead, in western Montana. He served as a tribal judge for a length of time, and the other two are of the Spokane or Kalispel tribes. It says both of those tribes spoke similar dialects to Pierre. And these are the Kalispel, Khalifa, Queen Khalifa, Kalima, Caliphate. They broke up the Caliphate. But it's interesting, we have another chief and he doesn't know. He's talking about another planet. I'd like to know which planet the Moors are from, the dirty Moors are from. And I'd like to know how is that even possible. The Flathead from Kalispel. They were later on given that name, Flathead. It's not something they call themselves. It was placed on them. And it was not initially the name of the tribe in Montana. Montana is named after the Moon Temple, Mauritania. And the term Mauritania, Montana Moon Temple. America is also known as the sun, as a temple of the sun and the moon. But once again, let's get back to this thing about the Vatican here, sending over dirty Moors, the popes. Let me find the image here of the Pope. I can find it down here for you 1 second. Back to Peru, the Mochai, Mochi civilization, mentioned them earlier before. Peru. Peru is the original Jerusalem. Get a book called When Rocks Cry Out by Horace Butler. Horace Butler did a wonderful job in When Rocks Cry Out. Peru. So Peru is Jerusalem. Peru Salam. It is the original Jerusalem. Jerusalem. The Jerusalem in New Jersey is the second. It's the satellite. New Jerusalem. In the video I'm responding to, they were wondering what was so significant about New Jersey and the territory of New Jersey. It is the second Jerusalem. It's no coincidence why Drew Ali set up his first organization after coming from the territory of North Carolina, which was Virginia territory. He was a part of another organization in North Carolina and Virginia before he moved to Jersey, and he set up the Canaanite Temple in Jersey. Jersey is the second satellite. Peru is the first Jerusalem, and the Jerusalem overseas is the third and the Masonic misdirection. Just like Morocco overseas is the third and the Masonic misdirection. Wanted to cover that about Peru and the Peruvian people. And of course Peru, and them not having any problem identifying as the Huari peoples, Hora peoples, the Maori, the Moorish people, Mori people, even the Mochi, Morsi people of Peru. So definitely wanted to point that out to you about Peru. So the Pope, the gentleman said the Pope sent over the dirty Moors to and colonize and invade the Americas to help the Europeans colonize and invade the indigenous people of the Americas. The Pope sent over the dirty Moors. So which Pope? I'd like to know which one sent over the dirty Moors. Again, the Vatican is not very old. Just showed you several other pictures of the concept of where it came from. But are you talking about these people here? Or are you talking about these people? So these people sent over the dirty Moors. Is that what you're saying? Or these people? Which one are you talking about? This belief system is not the same as this belief system. Two totally different systems. This one based off of free energy, free electricity, natural healing centers, the epitome of technology, despite what they tell you. This one is based off of absolute control and submission of people, specifically the original people, the original bloodlines of the earth realm. This is what this one is based off of, not this one. This one's not very old. This one is. So if you want to go back to circa 1500s, you drop the 1 from the 5, because they added 1,000 years of history. At least 580 years were added to history. Some people say 1,000. So do you mean they sent over the dirty Moors? Or which time frame are you talking about? When did it happen? When did it occur? Because since the Vatican, this Vatican's inception, it has been attempting to remove the Moorish bloodline from every regency in Europe first and in other places. This one was, well, they looked a little different, but they were at the time fighting against the Moorish King James of England and even the Moorish bloodline in Germany. The Vatican attempted to cover up the Moorish legacy even in Italy. So which pope sent dirty Moors? Which pope are you talking about? Which one? He didn't tell us which one sent the dirty Moors over here. And at the time, they were trying to get rid of this man and his bloodline and replacing the original bloodlines with usurpers. You might call them Albions or half-breeds or whatever. They were trying to get rid of these people, this bloodline, out of Europe. And if you didn't know about King James, you should know something about King James, if no one ever told you about King James. 1647 Slave Bible, King James, rare Moor's Head book plate. Moor's Head book plate. Heraldry binding, silver, $9,500. He is called, as you can see at the bottom, Moorish Kings of England. King James. And of Scotland, England, 1566, 1625, and his daughter. Moorish Kings of England. The Vatican was trying to bang on the Moors, even in England. And you say the Vatican sent over dirty Moors. You say the Vatican sent over dirty Moors. This is the gentleman, Guy Fawkes. They did a movie often called V for Vendetta, who was one of the assassins that the Vatican hired to begin to systematically, he had a group of gentlemen, he wasn't by himself, it was an organization, to systematically seek out and find the original bloodlines of the area and begin to assassinate them or cause conflicts to get them out. V for Vendetta, Guy Fawkes. He was, the organization was, the operation was called the Main Plot, to where he was hired to assassinate several Moorish kings. And at the end of the film, you see him blowing up Parliament. And Parliament basically is an ancient Moorish castle. So the Pope sent over dirty Moors to kill, wait a minute, he sent over, what did he say? The Pope sent over dirty Moors to help the English eradicate the indigenous people in the Americas, which he claims to be, but he don't claim to be a Moor. Then what happened to the Moors afterwards, after that? What happened? Guy Fawkes, the Main Plot, V for Vendetta, hired by the Vatican. And everything you heard Dick Gregory say about King James, he was repeating books that were put out by the Vatican. I believe Dick Gregory made a comment that King James had 13 wives and 9 children. Look at the two numbers, 13 and 9, Moorish numbers. 13 wives, 9 children, or 9 wives with 13 children, one of the two. And then Dick Gregory went on to say that he was homosexual, that he had sex with his mother, that he was a pedophile. Wait a minute, how do you have that many wives and that many children? And you're all that. Because it was propaganda put out by the Vatican. There are several people that have put out books about the true writings of King James, and he was stand-up gentleman, very stand-up. Even though he wrote a book called Demonology, which is also how to control demons. King Solomon was actually controlling demons. What people don't want to admit about King Solomon, they blame everything on him and his many wives, as that was a downfall. He was using demons to do his bidding. He was using them to do various things. And of course, King James puts out a book called Demonology. So again, I'm just curious as to who sent over dirty Moors from Europe to come over here and side with the English and a bunch of other foreigners to go against the indigenous people of the Americas. Who? How? What date? Show me a record. You got to give me something. It's almost like it's just okay to make shit up when you're talking about Moors, because for some reason there's a lot of hatred, and we know where it's coming from and we know why. Here's another royal of England. I believe she's the Duchess of Denmark, and you can see that even her head wrap is familiar with the old Egyptian head wrap, which they want to say it comes from a Dagon or fish god or whatever you say. But this is the people that they were trying to remove from the scene all throughout Europe, and they eventually did. They eventually did remove them. Some of them just went into hiding. Some of the family members are still there, still alive in Europe, just chilling, just hiding out. You probably walk by them every day and don't know who they are. But eventually they changed the whole makeup of the people that we see as kings and queens in Europe. That was part of the plan. And here we go. The other thing that I noticed is that from listening to several of the brothers' videos, I've never heard him mention these people here, which were sent over as a society, clandestine operation, not soldiers, not an army, but as a society, to start other societies, to begin to find and usurp. And some of these people are highly intelligent. They're not stupid. So are these the dirty Moors that the Pope sent over to infiltrate the original people of the Americas and to get them into contracts and acquiescence, land, and drop their titles of nobility? Are these the people so these are dirty Moors? Because they don't look like Moors at all. But these are some of the people that came over to do exactly what the brother said. It's getting to be a bit of, it's getting to be hilarious. Some of the things they're just making up. But the United States of America was once called the U.S. Corp, and it slowly started breaking away from the land and the people. I believe the origin of the first it was called the United States Societies, or excuse me, it was the Union States Societies, which was a company. And then an organization of societies, then United States for America, then United States of America. Of means you're breaking away. They were breaking away from the contracts that they had in not the contracts, but the agreements and the treaties that they had with the original peoples of the Americas. And they were trying to break away from its agreements and treaties with Moors using democracy, which is demons rule, instead of republic, which is Ra, pub, Ra, pu, ik, Ra, public, sun's rays, light, public, people of the sun, public, open. That's why Moors support a republic form of government. You can look up the term Moorish Republic and you'll see organizations pop up. The democracy is against Moors. Globalists and today's Zionists are anti-nationality. And if you go back and look, every nation initially of the world was set up as a republic. So the U.S. U.S. is a foreign corporation trying to expand its company's jurisdiction. Like I mentioned, the Virginia Company, prior to East Indian Company, and East Indian Company. And the East Indian Company was at odds with New Britain. They were having problems with New Britain, not the old world. The new rulers, or what you would call the hybrid bloodlines of Britain, were covertly, via secret societies, removing the Moorish bloodline from prominent positions because the original brute or brutish Moors, and we're going to get into that as well. So let me show you one of the original images here. Read this to you. Rome was initially established and then reconquered by the Caliphate of Moors. The Khanate of the clan. For 7 centuries there was no Europe. Let's repeat that again. I want to repeat that again. For 7 centuries there was no Europe. That unit was the marriage of Otto and Edith in 962. And Otto and Edith were both melanated people, despite the images they show you. I have a picture of them as well. I can pull it up later. But the above picture is of the golden bull of the Holy Roman Empire. All Holy Roman emperors had to be crowned under this coat of arms. The imperium was guarded by the Moorish knights called the Papanihium. They established the so-called nobility that ruled over the white WIGHT serfs when they came about. So once the white serfs came about, once that whatever they were came about, that's who they ruled over. Does it say they were working with him? It says they ruled over them. For a couple hundred years, that means ever since they've been around. Now, that gets into the white serf is different from what you would call the pale Caucasian, just using that term, what you call today. It was something different, totally different. But they ruled over them until the 100 Years' War. This treaty examines how the Europeans would bleach themselves and why the European became the archetype for colonism for centuries. Okay, the bleaching out process has become customary amongst various secret societies, families, and bloodlines associated with usurpers of Moorish crowns and thrones. This treaty explains how, why, and what to do today about it. Queen Khalifa was the queen of the Caliphate. Moors of the Maghreb, farthest west island, dual empire, one far east, one far west. And this is why you see so much race mixing in Hollywood, because it is customary. But they are attempting to usurp the Moorish bloodlines. Yes, 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 yes. So when we also talk about the brutish Moors, I want to show you something here. This is some of the original garb that they were, when they came about, they began to imitate the hair. Cap represents the hair of the original brutes, brute force. They were usurping them as well. It was happening all over the place. It shouldn't be a surprise to people about that. Okay? At one point I was told this was made up of a lion's tail, but I found out it's not. It may have been at one time, but I don't think they even wear that today. You don't see these on the British today, but these are the ones who were mimicking the original power in Europe. And then we can get to this image. As you can see now, it's kind of changing a little bit. Usurpers imitating the originals. Here's another one for you. This should be, and you can see how his hat mimics the fez, and even the part here mimics the tassel. This was other types of feathers they had in, and types of rocks and medicine for healing purposes. The whole nine. But now when we talk about the British and the Moors and usurping and the whole nine, we are going to have to talk about a few things. That goes back to one of the original images that's still up in Europe of the old world. When we get into the armor and the hand covers and even the swords and the whole nines, we get into the Moorish knights. You're getting into suits that were protective devices from the swords and the devices they were using. They were using energy weapons. So we may pull up a few images of knights later on, but let me mention to you something about the brutes, the British. Okay? Brute force. The new British are still wearing the black fez. You can see that when you pull up the new images of the British, you'll still see the new black fez. It was a hairstyle of the original brutes. So if any of you brothers ever wore high top fade, that's the origin. And remember, our people always did what the ancestors used to do. So the cartoon Popeye portrays the battle between Brutus, who wears a tassel on his hat. Remember, I just showed you the tassel that the gentleman wore on his hat. Brutus wore a tassel on his hat. And Popeye hit the Moor in the eye, or pineal gland. Or the Sally man, Sally or man, Sally, from Sally or Becky's blood. So you can look up the cities of Sally and Becky in Europe, and they were known for white slave trade, the white slave trade. Sally, Becky. Sally or man, sailor man, Popeye the sailor man. Okay, from Sally or Becky's blood. Now, Brutus and Popeye, they were at war with each other. They weren't fucking working together. They were at war. And who were they fighting over? They were fighting over olive oil, which is the woman. Olive is the name Ali, as in the man you disrespected in your video, Drew Ali, right before his birthday. We're going to get on that later on. A title, Ali, is given. The title is not earned. Olives, look up the benefit of olives. And olives also represent every known complexion of, just going to use this word, humanity, because that's what you're used to. Let's deal with the brutes, the brutish Moors, brute force. We still must clarify that old Britain under the East Indian Company, well, they were at odds with the New Britain. So when we go back to the East Indian Company, now we're going back to the Virginia Company and the whole nine. The problem with a lot of people today is they tend to lump all of the old power, the old authority of Britain in with the new. You had usurpers coming in that were trying to remove any remnants of Tartaria, the Moorish Tartaria influence. They were trying to remove that and hide that pretty much all over the earth plane, including in Europe. But the new rulers or hybrid bloodlines of Britain were covertly, via secret societies, removing the Moorish bloodline from prominent positions, and they were doing this various ways. That was because the original was the brutes, or what we call the brutish or brute force, the brute force Moors. But the new Brits, as I mentioned before in other photos, they're still wearing the black square top military crown that was similar to the square hair top of the fez, or the hairstyles of the original brutes. So if you've ever wore a high top fade, that's kind of where they're getting the design of the high top fade goes back to the square top of the cap and the hat that the old Brits were wearing, the original brutes. But that's the origin. And our people always do what the original ancient bloodlines did. We always do that. Then you have the cartoon. We have to get into the cartoon. Popeye portrays the battle between the brutes, which is Brutus, who had the dark beard and everything. You had Brutus and you had Popeye, Popeye. the name Popeye. Hit the moor in the eye, or the pineal gland. And then look up the towns of Sally or Beck, or Becky's, Sally or Beck. Look up those towns. So you had Popeye the Sailor Man, Sally Man, and they were going to battle over the woman. And who was the woman? Now, they were battling each other over the woman. They weren't working together. So this whole analogy of the brutes or the British or the Moors joining forces with the Europeans or the later Pale Europeans, they've only been around for 200 years. A lot of the bloodlines have. Some of them are a little older. Described that in a video called What is a Moor? 1. But they were going to war, fighting over the olive woman. Olive Oil was her name in the cartoon Popeye. Olive Oil, the olive woman. And Olive is the name Ali. And that is a title that has to be earned. And you look up the benefits of olives. Olives also represent every known complexion of humanity. And once again, they were fighting over the woman. Ancient olives and grapes were the size of small watermelons before the rogue female priesthood began its experiments to shut it down and reset the system to their benefit. Yep, there is a rogue female priesthood behind this thing we're dealing with today. There's queens behind this, also known as the widows. So the whole thing about who had the downfall, right? The woman had the downfall. We are waiting for her to rise. Now, you've seen this picture shown before plenty of times. And we have the male over the hands. We have a grounding bar here because these were energy weapons. So we get into the Moors and we get into the Knights. A lot of people want to continue to talk about the brutes being the dirty Moors. This is a different time period and a different people running a different system, battling against different things. This is not the same system that you have today in Britain. They stood for something totally different. They're just trying to make it seem like they've always been around. They've always been the same people. That's the trick. That is the hijack. You want to yell dodge the hijack? You need to find out what it was. These people are not the same as the people running it today. Absolutely different, represent different things. You have the male over the hands because these are protective. This is protective armor. Okay, it's to protect them from pulse and energy weapons. So now let's get into that. You see he's got a grounding bar around the shield. Okay, so we're going to get into some things that your channelers and all of your people are not telling you about this time frame. This is Excalibur, but this is a pulse sword. These were pulse weapons they were using, EMF weapons, the whole nine they were using. They emitted electricity and EMF. It read the body, and it pulled energy out of the air, and these were the weapons that they were using, which is why they wore a lot of the armor that you see. We're going to get into that too. So this is some of the things they were using to go against the rogue dragons, or what you call the wild dragons, the non-domesticated dragons. The dragons were just like, our animals today. You had the domesticated ones, and you had the ones that were causing havoc. So I'm going to enlarge some pictures here for you as we get into what they were dealing with. Okay, energy weapons. This is why they had the armor on. This is ridiculous to wear in a battle against a man. If you slip and fall, that's your ass. All right, so we got to start using common sense here. This armor was to protect them from the weapons that they were wielding and using. And you can look into videos on the dragons, and when a lot of the brothers are covering the ancient dragons. Okay, just touching on some of the armor. Okay, it's protective armor to protect them from the pulse weapons and energy weapons they were using to battle a lot of beasts, a lot of giants, and the whole nine. And because they were doing a great job, and these once again are the Nagab, the Knights, the Negus, right? the Knights, the Negus, the Moors, because they were doing a good job at doing that, a lot of other nations and people and groups and if you call colonies, they became subservient to them. So it wasn't always about invasions and wars. It was, you take out this beast and we're going to pay you tribute. Or you take out those beasts and we're going to pay tribute. These uniforms, so to speak, suits, and you can tell his helmet looks like a welder's helmet. So what does he want to protect himself from, right? So these suits, again, were not used in war against men. They didn't wear those when they went to war against men. They wore those when they went to war against beasts or against dragons, which you would call, people mislabel them as dinosaurs. This is an actual suit here. It's made out of silver and elements of gold. And I want, like I say, take a look. It's got a cape. Look at the cape. Almost like our modern day superheroes. This is what the Moors was doing here. Right? Saving a lot of you motherfuckers from the dragons and the beasts, and now y'all want to call them dirty Moors. From the malevolent bloodlines and the malevolent dragons and the non-domesticated, the wild dragons and the wild beasts. Okay, and you can see also it has it on his horse. This is protective gear. Okay, this is protective gear. We're going to eradicate this dirty Moor crap about them being invaders all the time, and oh, it was the Moors, it was the dirty Moors. So now, once again, I want to show you this. You see that one, okay? Now we're going to show you. We're going to get real deep on your ass, okay? We're going to show you. We're going to show you here, Mr. Tony Stark. So they're kind of showing you exactly what it was. The Iron Man suit. Remembers the it kind of looks just like some of the Knights armor I was showing you here, doesn't it? There it is. See that? This is what was happening. And this is gold and silver. We know what gold does with electricity and silver. Look at this, man. This is why would you design something like this to go into battle, man? I mean, you could easily use any other material or something rugged and rough looking. You know, like I say, it doesn't make any sense in warfare because once you slip, that's your ass. Because these were pretty much the same suits as that they gave you in Iron Man. Showing you what it was, okay? Technology is not new. Okay, this technology is not new. They're using old technology. It's another Iron Man suit. Okay, to take out them non-domesticated dragons. Let's take a look at a couple more. All right, y'all remember this one. All right. Some of the same things that they were doing when Tartaria was doing battle with a lot of malevolent forces. Just want to show you another one of him getting ready to slay the dragon, because this is a suit to protect you from this pulse energy weapon that you use to take the malevolent dragons out, not the domesticated ones. Okay, just like you got domesticated dogs and domesticated cats, it was the same situations with the dragons. Now I want to play a brief video for you. Let me make sure I showed you everything here. Okay, I showed you that one. I want to play a video for you here real quick, so you can see what it is, man. I want to talk stuff about Moors all the time. Don't know how.
I've heard stories from the past about these knights, but I bet you've never seen weapons like this. Did you know that knights was using weapons that could generate and shoot out electricity? Oh my days. I want you to take a good look at the handle of this sword. Coils generate vortexes. Vortexes create an electromagnetic field. Magnetic field conducts currents in and out lines of force in a torus circuit. It is said When parrying with a flame-barred sword, unpleasant vibrations can transfer into the attacker's blade. These vibrations cause the blade to slow contact with each other because additional friction is encountered with each wave. X-rays of a Bronze Age sword grip's intricate designs indicate some sort of tech. The question is, why? This is a modern-day example of that same weapon in use.
There it is.
Able to convert natural atmospheric energy into electricity, and underneath their armor, they will be wearing special protective grounding suits to prevent them from electrocuting themselves.
Grounding suits.
Trust me, brother, the truth is stranger than fiction.
Now, I just want to tell you all again, these people that's getting on there giving you all this information about Moors, they don't know half of the shit they talking about. They don't know what they're saying. A lot of them are just making stuff up. And it's just getting ridiculous. They're making stuff up, man. This is what was going down back during the time, during the during the Tartarian age, and during the Dragon Slayer time. That's what was going down, man. They gave you the whole story in a lot of history books. You know, you read about Excalibur, you read about Merlin or Moorland, the Moor, Moorland the magician. Okay. They're kind of giving it up to you. He's the one who designed it. He was the one who knew all about the sword and the whole thing, and and the whole deal. So, this is kind of what we was dealing with, man. So I just want to tell people, man, like I say, some of these cats get on here talking about the Moors this and Moors out of Europe and the British and brutes. They don't know half of what they're saying. Old Britain under Tartaria is not like New Britain. Old Europe is not New Europe. It's not the same people running. It's usurpers. They've usurped. They've changed everything. They're using technology now to control people instead of the free people. It's not the same people. It's not the same system. That is a lie. Just think. Just think. Back to Peru, the Mochai, Mochi civilization, mentioned them earlier before. Peru. Peru is the original Jerusalem. Get a book called When Rocks Cry Out by Horace Butler. Horace Butler did a wonderful job in When Rocks Cry Out. Peru. So Peru is Jerusalem. Peru Salam. It is the original Jerusalem. Jerusalem. The Jerusalem in New Jersey is the second. It's the satellite. New Jerusalem. In the video I'm responding to, they were wondering what was so significant about New Jersey and the territory of New Jersey. It is the second Jerusalem. It's no coincidence why Drew Ali set up his first organization after coming from the territory of North Carolina, which was Virginia territory. He was a part of another organization in North Carolina and Virginia before he moved to Jersey, and he set up the Canaanite Temple in Jersey. Jersey is the second satellite. Peru is the first Jerusalem, and the Jerusalem overseas is the third and the Masonic misdirection. Just like Morocco overseas is the third and the Masonic misdirection. Wanted to cover that about Peru and the Peruvian people. And of course, Peru and them not having any problem identifying as the Huari peoples, Hora peoples, the Maori, the Moorish people, Mori people, even the Mochi, Morsi people of Peru. So definitely wanted to point that out to you about Peru. The gentleman referred to the Moor Zionist temple as the nappy-headed Negroes, those nappy-headed Negroes, those nappy-headed dirty Moors. In this article, the top, Moor is not a nationality. That's already been debated. It's already been dismissed years ago. Moor is absolutely a nationality. You can proclaim Moor as a nationality. Indian is not a nationality. That is true. This debate, Moor is not a nationality. That's already been won. But I'm bringing this up to point out to you about the Lenape, the word Lenape, the Lenape. You can look this up on your own. Susquehanna and Lenape is the nationality of those Moors, okay? It goes right here. It says in 1681, the Indians of New England, or Moors, as they were called. And it goes on. But he said those nappy-headed Negroes. The word la nape here, la nape, is we the people. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, the preamble. The word la nape is we the people. It's where we get the word nappy from. So I don't think it's a coincidence, again, that the brother used those nappy-headed Zionist dirty Moors. I think he knows something and he's mocking you all. Here it is again, the Nantucket and the Lenape Confederation. And this is from the Learning Center and Museum, and you can pull it up. Let's go to, I want to show you a couple things in here. 1921. It says under 1920, it gives dates under here. The State Board of Education may establish schools for the children of the people called Moors. No white or colored children shall be permitted to attend such a school without permission of the Board of Trustees, said the school and the State Board of Education. So remember, this is 1921. Well, I'll be goddamn. Remember, white or colored is a status. It has nothing to do with complexion. That's a status of people. All right? And we go on, it's 1959. You wrote down to 1959. It says, this is the journal. The journal every evening of Wilmington publishes an article. Every evening publishes an article in which a man identifies as a Delaware Moor. And he cites his people, started the Big Thursday celebration, recalling the gathering of 1,500 Moors from Brighton and Cheswold in 1934. And remember, if you look this up, this even goes back further and further into the 1800s. It goes further and further back. Moore keeps going further and further back. So why they cover the word up? And why do you have people right now claiming to be indigenous and autochthonous, and they read the same documents we have, and they read right around the word Moor? There's some bullshit going on with a lot of these people that you are trusting that's giving you information on Moors. They lying to you. And some of the times it's obvious that they're lying. The question is, why are they lying? 1967, it goes on, an article, use on the history of Cheswold and the belief that the Cheswold Moors are of Delaware, Lenape, and it keeps going on. It goes on and on. The Moors article indicates the Cheswold community members Cheswold community members had an M for Moor on their driver's license from the 1950s to the 1970s, where many were changed by the state to others, letting you know that the M Moor was a nationality. Okay? This is it goes on to cover a lot of that. This is in what's called the Nantucket and Lenape Confederation Learning Center and Museum. Remember, the brother said those nappy-headed Zionist Moors, them nappy-headed niggas. He's mocking you all. He's claiming to be a chief, and he's mocking Moors. The Lenape, we the people. That's the preamble. In order to form a more perfect union, if you have something perfect, it can't be more perfect because the word in the preamble is M-O-O-R. They were putting it together to stop all the wars. We were supposed to be coming together. And you see the turtle here, and you see the Cherokee wheel in the back. Okay, they've got the Cherokee wheel with the turtle, and over here you see the pipes in the form of an X. And you see a circle around the great bird. Turkey represents the Turks, the Tuscarora. Right? Nantucket and Lenape Confederation Learning Center and Museum. Feel free to pull it up. It's at the NantucketLenapeMuseum.org. Pull that up and read the whole thing. And then ask some of these autochthonous kings out there that's all over YouTube why they ain't reading this to you. Why you don't know about this. Some of them niggas are Freemasons and they're hiding it. That's the truth of the matter. Or they're working with Freemasons to hide it. I didn't say Masons, I said Freemasons. That's the truth of the matter. Right here again, right in your face. The brother mentions that our women created other races, but does that include the hybrid and pale faces? We want to get into the story of Yaqub or Yaqub bomb? Remember the video was titled Monkeys and Gorillas, but before we go into that, I want to talk about George Washington. He mentions George Washington as Adam Wessenhoff, but George Washington wasn't even his real name. Washington is a title. Wasso is a title. George and Jorge or George is a title that became a name, but Washington was not his real name. But as Adam Wessenhoff, George Washington became in debt to the Sultan. George Washington's teacher was Prince Whipple. This is a famous picture. This is not what George looked like. Covered this in another video. He was melanated. He's turning his back. This would be his left. He's turning his back to his teacher. He's a traitor. He was a traitor. But how come this brother didn't mention that he was also a Freemason? Matter of fact, his Freemasonic order, his lodge, initiated the war against the original bloodlines. But you left him out being an FM. Why did you leave that out? But without getting too much into George, because we're going to seriously expose George later on in another video that's coming up, where we handle the absolute traitors, to where you're going to see beyond a shadow of doubt who the traitors are then and who they are now. So we're saving that for another video. But the city of Fez during the time of George Washington, 1789, when he was talking to the Sultan, was right here in Pennsylvania. Here's Fez, here's Tangier. Here's Casablanca, which is in Iowa. Here's Marrakesh, which is in Kentucky. Okay, this is the city of Fez. Here's Dover. It's another one for you. But here's the city of Fez. The city of Fez was also known as New York City at one time, and also Gotham. So the whole thing about him talking to the Sultan of Morocco, Sultan means power. It just means the power and authority. And I can show you images of Morocco too in the Americas. See, these exotic maps, and when you look up the dates and time that they were founded, here's Morocco here in Indiana. There's also Medina, Illinois. There's a Gibraltar right up here. It looks like in Michigan. There's a Sweden in Pennsylvania. There's a Nepali. There's a Greece in upstate New York. There's a Turkey in North Carolina. There's a Spartan in Georgia. There's a Jerusalem in Georgia as well. If you go on and on with there's a Lisbon in Florida. Atlantis, of course, Atlantic City. Berlin, up north, Connecticut, New Hampshire. So when you start dealing with the exotic maps of the Americas and you look at the dates, this is what these autochthonous Moor haters, they are afraid of these exotic maps. And when you look up the founding of the cities as compared to the founding of the cities overseas, you're going to be shocked. There's an Arabia, North Carolina. But the word Arabia comes from the word Caribbean, which is the word Arabian. But see this, when you look all this up and you analyze it with when stuff was founded overseas, it's going to blow their shit out of the water. They can no longer say who's a foreigner. Now you're going to have to be very specific. You're going to have to look at bloodlines and the whole nine, which is they're afraid to look at. But without getting too much into George became in debt to the Sultan. He was in debt to the Sultan of Morocco, which is the power. He became in debt to the power of Morocco. And he turned his back. He made side deals to get out of the money he owed. He was a traitor. His wife outed him as a traitor. And we will get into that in the next video. What's interesting is, once again, the title of the video I'm responding to had to do with monkeys and gorillas. But monkeys and gorillas are hybrid animals. They are a mixture of something. Here's an example of an image, and it says this is the ancestor of the European, that's not true. But when you deal with the RH gene blood type, now that gets into something. The original European did not look like what we think today. But they talk about monkey blood, and you can look this up. So they're correct when they say the RH gene blood type, but they're not correct when they say the ancestor of the European. And it says, no, we're not all the same. That's true. We're not all the same. That's definitely true. But you have to draw the fine line and start to look at the RH gene blood type. And do not start calling all Europeans descendants of monkeys and apes, because the original Europeans did not look like what you think they look like today, or even classified as what they look like today. Here is a gentleman of Maurice Tillett. And Maurice Tillett is where they got the character of Shrek. And he was a real man that existed. He was a wrestler back in the day. And you can see the size of his head as proportion to his shoulders and his very strange body type. So look up Maurice Tillett, Tillet. And he was also known as the Ape Man. And there was some other people at the time, whether they were his relatives or whatnot, but there were groups of people that resembled Maurice Tillett. He wasn't the only one. He was just kind of ostracized and sought out. But there were people that looked like this during his time, and there were other people around who resembled very hairy creatures and beings. So specifically in some of the areas in the mountainous regions of Europe. But once again, the original Europeans did not look like what we classify them as today. They're not from monkeys. The original Europeans were melanated peoples. That's just another portion of North Africa people. So you might want to check yourselves when you start going down that line, trying to make people appear to be less than you because you have melanin. Even his eyes were brown eyes, and some of the other ones had the stamp of melanin on them as well. So we have to be careful about getting into this whole light skin complexion, dark skin complexion, who's better, who's worse, who's superior, who's inferior, because a lot of it comes down to blood. As I just mentioned before in the previous image, you want to look into bloodline. You don't want to necessarily just start rolling with the complexion thing, because that's going to throw you for a loop. But the fact that they were giving so much praise to the monkeys and gorillas and the whole nine, and a gorilla will fight off a pack of lions to protect its young and the whole nine, and yeah, okay. But you're still dealing with monkeys, and gorillas are hybrid animals. So just wanted to point out, when you get a chance, look up Maurice Tillett. Very interesting. Here's a very classic image. You see Drew Ali on your right, and you see one of the Mongolian Asian mixed on your left, but you see the pose. This is a very famous pose. You can see 3 sevens in the picture if you know what to look for, the way his arms and his legs are. But the brother had the nerve to say that Noble Drew Ali went and learned from the Moorish Zionist temple. He went and learned how to seduce people. This is what the brother said. He said that Noble Drew Ali went and learned from the Moorish Zionist temple how to seduce people. Well, the Moorish Zionist temple wasn't founded until 1921. Noble Drew Ali's Canaanite temple was founded in 1913. It was up and running in 1911 and established in 1913, which Herman Mordecai, or Mordecai Herman, was one of Drew Ali's teachers one of Drew Ali's students under the Canaanite temple in 1913. Noble Drew Ali didn't learn from them. And Noble Drew Ali was totally against witchcraft and magic. And he definitely didn't learn how to seduce people. He was totally against wicked magic. And I'm going to show it to you by his own statement, supposedly. But Mordecai Herman was a student of the Canaanite temple in 1913. We find the name Mordecai. Who else would have been named Mordecai during that time? In 1913, under the Canaanite temple. How does it feel so? I don't know why people are so comfortable with just throwing things out there like that. I don't know what that's about. We're going to get into Mordecai Herman here in the next segment here, but I want to read something to you out of Drew Ali's oral prophecies and statements of Noble Drew Ali. He is not Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali either. That was Elijah Muhammad who took that title, Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali. He came back to try and say he was a reincarnation of Noble Drew Ali. Do you all know that? Yeah, that's not Drew Ali, Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali. That was Elijah Muhammad. All you got to do is do a FOIA under the Moor Science Temple, and they'll send you all the information and documents. You'll see the names in there. You'll see who was acting like who was trying to usurp Drew Ali. It was two other people trying to take Drew Ali's credit too for what he did. Oral statements and prophecies of Prophet Drew Ali. Let's go to number 63 here. 63, I'll read it out loud for you. Sister brother says Noble Drew Ali went to join the Moorish Zionist temple, and he learned from Mordecai Herman how to seduce people. 63, Noble Drew Ali asked, how many of you can do something? He was inquiring as to how many of them could work magic, etc. Some of the Moors stood up. The prophet pointed his finger at them and said, I am going to kill all of you. And what that meant is, I'm going to put all of that stuff you're doing to rest. And he stated that, quoting another prophet, the sorcerer will not enter paradise. He called them sorcerers that were working magic. You said, brother, that he learned how to go and seduce people from the Moor Zionist temple. When the founder of the Moor Zionist temple, Herman Mordecai, which wasn't founded until 1921, was a student of Drew Ali in 1913 under the Canaanite temple. Bashing Noble Drew Ali is not cool, brother. Somebody will point it out to you eventually. Usually that gets exposed. Just like the brother, my dear brother in South America, I respect some of the work he's done, but you tried to say that Abdul Hamed Soliman was his teacher. And in another, Jamal Al-Ghani was his teacher. Bullshit. I blew it out the water in a video that's called Abdul Hamed Soliman Not. He was not Drew Ali's teacher. The two gentlemen probably didn't even know each other. The dates don't add up at all. Abdul Hamed Soliman was a fraud, and I show you he was a fraud in the video, Abdul Hamed Soliman Not. Pull it up on YouTube. But they always want to make Drew Ali be something he's not, either a Muslim, he's not a Muslim, he wasn't a Muslim, a Freemason, he was not a Freemason, he was not a Mason, he was not a part of a lodge, he had teachers, he had many teachers from around the world. His main one was from the Americas. And another one was from Peru. Taking shots at Noble Drew Ali is not a good idea. And the fact that you should know he's very well respected amongst a lot of people that you say you have respect for, but then you do things like that. I just don't know. I must say this again. I said it in the video, what is a Moor? Number one. What is a Moor? M-O-O-R. M-U-U-R, number one, on YouTube. Pull that up. I'm going to say it again. Where is your prophet, Mr. Chief? Your prophet, Mr. Costa Rica? Your prophet, the other two gentlemen? Where's your prophet, your seer, your sayer, your shaman, your Shah woman, your oracle that was publicly teaching over 100 years ago that you have a nationality, that you're not Negro, blacks, and coloreds? That was teaching that you have an indigenous autochthonous heritage, that was teaching you that you have a claim to the Americas, and is documented. Where's your prophet? Where's yours at? Who was doing it publicly that you can name that's in your tribe? Well, the Moors have ones right here. And he ain't the only one. We can go back further and show you other people that were doing the same thing about trying to stop the foreigners from acquiescing, taking land, And he was doing it at a time in the 1900s to where everybody was under attack. If you know anything about the 1900s, that's when we was catching hell. And he was the one that said, wait a minute, we not none of that. Don't classify yourselves as Negroes, blacks, and coloreds. And some of you all today you're repeating the information that's been in the Moor Science Temple for 100 goddamn years, and you're not giving them any credit. Matter of fact, you're attacking them. I'm wondering who the real traitors are. Because I think we're seeing it in 2024 and 2025. We can't find anybody else that was making it public. We can find people that wasn't talking about it, that was keeping it private because they had alliances and agreement with the U.S. corporation. And those are fucking tribes. They had alliances and agreements not to say nothing. They were keeping it in their societies. He went public with it. You niggas ought to be ashamed.
Yo, told y'all in the beginning, figure out what humble pie is.